How do Russians most often justify their aggression? They are convinced that everything in Ukraine historically belongs to Russia. So, in their view, they didn't attack, they're just taking back what's theirs.
Kyiv is more complicated.
What?
Well, the Poles sold Kyiv to us. Well,
All the more so.
right? We paid money for it. And now why is someone living there?
Now we'll sell love. No, that's...
That's what, who's even there? Hey, get out of there.
There you go. That's...
Some kind of riffraff showed up. So I suggest we tear it down and build it all over again.
The extremely chauvinistic and fascist position of Russians will definitely be thoroughly studied by psychiatrists in the future. Especially the belief that Kyiv is a Russian city. You simply can't come up with anything more absurd.
Kyiv is a Russian city, and from there comes a threat to the existence of the Russian Federation. An international threat. Because even though Kyiv is a city with Russian roots, it is run by an international brigade of Russia's opponents.
The entire point of Moscow's existence is endless attempts to steal Kyiv. It's the obsession of every ruler of this pseudo-state. And now this madness has spread to the majority of the patriotic population as well.
Kyiv, the Russian language. Such a really beautiful city.
Thank you all. This concludes the event.
Despite all their hatred for Europe, Russians have always dreamed of becoming part of it. That's why taking Kyiv means proving their Europeanness, their belonging to the civilized world. Kyiv as part of the empire is a mark of quality, a sign of legitimacy. Without it, the average Russian living in a Khrushchevka can't even eat. Eggs have become more expensive, there's a shortage of butter, and chicken is now a delicacy. And it's all because Kyiv still hasn't been captured. So for now, people have to fight for food.
There's the food distribution over there.
But how did the myth of primordially Russian Kyiv even come about? Who came up with this in a feverish delirium? This is a rather late imperial legend. It appeared at the same time as the narrative that Russia is Rus.
Nonsense. Nonsense. Nonsense.
In the 18th century, Peter I simply appropriated a well-known and respected brand for his Muscovy. The Tsar wanted at any cost to establish himself in Europe and change the attitude of the old European powers toward him. And for that, a name known around the world was needed, one with a more solid history than the history of his then Valenkastan. Rus's was a perfect fit to improve Moscow's image, and to move it from the category of barbarians to the category of those accepted with a handshake, especially since the opportunity presented itself. At the end of the 17th century, Moscow bought Kyiv from the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth.
Oh, how convenient.
The tricky question for a Z-patriot: how can you buy something that supposedly has always been yours?
I really don't know.
Not only did Kyiv join Muscovy only at the end of the 17th century, it became part of the swamps as a result of the treacherous betrayal by the Muscovites. Khmelnytsky made a military alliance with them to fight against the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. But as usual, the clodhoppers ignored the agreements, just like they do now, and made a separate peace with Poland, the so-called the Eternal Peace. The Tsar disregarded the alliance with the Ukrainians. Instead of helping to defend Kyiv, he simply seized it for himself like a rat.
I am truly deeply convinced that we will be taking Kyiv, not liberating it. We are liberating Donbass. Everything else we will be taking as well, just as we took Vienna, as we took Berlin, as we took Budapest.
Kyiv was part of Russia for only about 200 years out of its 1,500-year history. That doesn't really make it an originally Russian city. Let's dispel this swampy myth once and for all. Kyiv was founded long before the world ever heard words like Russia, Moscow, the Russian world, balalaika, or a shot of vodka on the table. The exact age of the Ukrainian capital is not known for certain. During Soviet times, they literally invented a founding date, 482 AD, just to be able to grandly celebrate its 1,500th anniversary. The mother of Russian cities, this entire celebration, of course, was presented in the context that Kyiv, Ukraine, and Russia are all the same thing. Imperial Russian propaganda did not disappear during Soviet times. In fact, it only grew stronger.
The prophetic words of the leader came true. With the united action of the great Russian and Ukrainian proletariat, a free Ukraine is possible. Without such unity, there can be no talk of it at all.
This myth can't even be stretched to fit the coat of arms of the USSR. According to various estimates, Kyiv is between 1,200 and 2,000 years old. The city on the middle course of the Borysthenes, that is the Dnipro, was marked on his map by the ancient Greek scholar Ptolemy as early as the 2nd century. There is even a theory that the city was founded on the site of a Roman military camp. And as is well known, many European centers arose from such camps. Vienna, London, Budapest, Bonn. If that's true, then Kyiv was in NATO long before the inhabitants of the swamps learned to tell pine cones from stones.
We defeated Kyiv as such in the very first week. Let me remind you, we were already in Hostomel, we were everywhere, we had basically taken it. I know soldiers who were there and were horrified when they were ordered to leave. I personally know these people. We are fighting. Since the beginning of March, we haven't been fighting Kyiv, but the West.
In the 9th century, Kyiv became the capital of a vast state stretching from the Baltic to the Black Sea. And it remained the capital until the mid-13th century. 400 years! Kyievans founded Moscow, Yaroslavl, Vladimir, and a bunch of other cities in Russia. By the way, if we follow the logic of the Russians themselves, it turns out that all these cities are originally Ukrainian, since they were founded by Kyiv monarchs, who lived on the territory of modern Ukraine. That's a bit awkward. It creates an interesting paradox. If the Kremlin believes that Kyiv is a Russian city because Moscow once took it over, then Moscow is definitely originally Ukrainian, because it was founded by a Kyivan. Hooray, patriots and Z supporters, open the gates. We're about to hit you with a very painful fact. Yuri Dolgoruki was born in Kyiv and is buried in Kyiv. Again, based on the Kremlin's feverish logic. The ancestors of Russians themselves did not associate themselves with Rus or with Kyiv at all. And this is documented in the chronicles. For example, princes or merchants from Vladimir Suzdal, when traveling to Kyiv, would write, "I'm going to the Rusland to Kyiv." Agree, when you travel from Zhytomyr to Kyiv, you don't say "I'm going to Ukraine." Makes sense, isn't that right? Moving on. The history of Kyiv also has nothing to do with Russia. During the Mongol invasion, Kyiv was under the rule of Prince Danilo of Halik, who later received the title of King of Rus. The Mongols destroyed Kyiv because the people of Kyiv fought against the aggressor. Meanwhile, the great saint of the Muscovites, Alexander Nevsky, became an ordinary collaborator and collected taxes for the horde from his own people. Later, Kyiv became part of the Grand Duchy of Lithuania, Samogitia, and Rus. And we already know that Rus refers to the historical lands of Ukraine. Then Kyiv was part of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. After that, it became part of the Cossack Ukrainian state, the Hetmanate, and only after the Hetmanate was abolished at the end of the 18th century did the Tsarist authorities begin turning Kyiv into a typical provincial city of the Russian Empire. But the residents of Kyiv did not become Russians because of this and could not even imagine such a thing, not even in their worst nightmares. At the very first opportunity, they told the empire to go to hell, UNR, and declared independence. In 1917, Kyiv became the center of Ukraine's national revival, the capital of the Ukrainian state. And no one had any doubt that Kyiv was the main Ukrainian city.
One way or another, the Central Rada proclaimed the creation of the Ukrainian People's Republic. The Ukrainian People's Republic was initially declared to be an autonomous entity, and subsequently it was proclaimed to be fully independent and separate from Russia. Furthermore, the Central Rada, which was the governing council at the time, managed to effectively deal with its own internal Bolshevik uprisings and was able to successfully suppress them.
The myth of Kyiv as a Russian city is a continuation of the deliberate and consistent rhetoric of Putin's clique, which denies the existence of the Ukrainian nation and the right of Ukrainians to their own statehood. But this entire construct is undermined by Kyiv as the center of Ukrainian culture, tradition, and statehood. Whoever controls Kyiv is king of the hill.
I would like to remind you that this video is created for entertainment purposes and contains elements of satire and irony. All facts and events are presented in a hyperbolized or exaggerated form to convey a comedic or dramatic effect. Our goal is not to mislead, but to highlight humor. Please take it with a smile.